Okay, we are going to do some instructions here on how to change out a screen for an Acer Aspire. I do believe this is a 4720Z. As you can see, I've already dismantled a little bit of it, but I'll go over the step-by-step on what you actually need to do to get to this point. First things first, always make sure you power the system down properly first. Make sure it's unplugged. Remove the battery just like you're supposed to do first. Otherwise, you need to get behind the compartment anyway. So there are 7 screws that you definitely need to remove to get the bezel off that would cover up the hinge assembly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there might be an 8th screw here, but maybe the customer had it removed at another time, because when I opened it up, the screw wasn't there. So 7, possibly 8, hard to tell. But take those off, you flip it over, and then this particular piece lifts off of here relatively easy. You hardly have to pry it at all. And then for the screen bezel, there are 6 screws that are behind little rubber feet here, and then these 4 locations up top. Try to be careful when removing the feet, so that way you don't ruin the glue, because they can always be reapplied afterwards as long as the glue isn't ruined. After you undo those screws, that comes off relatively easy with your fingernails to go around the outside and the inside rim of the screen. We take that off, set it off to the side. Make sure you're careful when you're removing that, because there are little tiny hooks on the back of it that can easily break. Okay, now that we are technically to that point, always try to be neat with where you set your screws at. I usually set mine in the same pattern as if they were taken off at, as you can see probably from the view. Now, one thing to be careful with is this particular model laptop, since it is a little bit older, still has an LCD inverter. So what we want to do first to help is to remove those plugs. Sometimes it's a little bit easier that way to just have them removed to start with. That way you don't have to completely remove it. If you're real good, sometimes you can take the screen out of the brackets and still leave the bracket connected to the back end if you have a small enough of a screwdriver. If you can't, if you don't have small enough of a screwdriver, there are 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here that can be easily removed. And then once you remove those, the whole back assembly will come off of the bottom. We'll do it that way, since that'll probably be the more common way that people will probably do it. Make sure you're careful when you take these off. I usually do one screw at a time off of each side, and then obviously you'll slowly have to hold on to one side while you unscrew the other. Hold on to the side that you did first and do the other side. Set that there, and then that'll fall just right away. Makes it real easy. There are 4 screws on the side of the screen, 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom on each side. Doesn't matter which ones you undo first usually, because it will just fall away anyhow. Just as before, be careful, because even though this screen might be the junk screen, you obviously still don't want it to fall, as it could still ruin the cord, which on average it's not something that's hard to replace, but yeah, fold it down gently so you don't ruin anything. if possible, try to do your best to gently peel back the metal tape. If you peel back gently enough, you can get it off without damaging really anything, as there's a good chance you'll want to reuse that. We'll just set it off to the side. And then every laptop's a little bit different. Most laptops the connector pulls out. Some of them have a flip connector. This one just pulls out. Set the power cord down, and you can easily just pull the old screen out. We will set that off to the side. We've got the new screen here from laptopscreen.com to set in. Be extra careful with it. They are generally kind enough to always put a piece of protective plastic on the front of the screen so you don't fingerprint the living crap out of it in this process. Set it down gently. Then you'll want to bring everything back up to the way it was before. Sorry if my hands happen to be in the way here. Bring it down. You want to gently wiggle that in side to side. It's better if you go in straight on both sides at once, but sometimes it's just easier to wiggle it. And then after you've made sure 100%, just double check it. Reapply the metal tape. If for some reason the metal tape is not sticky, a lot of times a good piece of electrical tape will work just as good. Try to reuse this, because put everything back about where it was. We'll take this and we fold this new one back up. And then sometimes it might be easier to completely take the hinge assembly off the frame before you do this. But maybe I should have done it that way. Put that on. Depends on how good you can maneuver a screwdriver usually. And I dropped the one screw, but I see exactly where it went, so I'll go and fetch it here in a second after I get this one in, just so the screen is nice and steadied. There's a little magnet on the back of the plate, and that just happened to catch it for me, so that works out good. Don't completely tighten them all up until you get all four of them in, as like with anything, could end up causing a problem in the long run by moving and wiggling stuff. You don't need to. There we go. That one's deciding to go in finally. Get the other side in now. Since for some reason screws are wanting to stick to my screwdrivers tonight. Sorry if my head's in the way. Screw that in. Okay, nice and tight. Nice and tight. Okay, now's a good time to take the nice protective cover that you get off. You can take it off later, but it's just easier to do it now from what I've been able to gather. Probably would have been easier a minute ago, but I would have increased my chances of fingering it up. Try to do my best to not do that. Make sure that all the wires are where they need to be so you don't accidentally pinch one. Bring this back up. go ahead and start putting the back panels back in. Make sure they're all nice and lined up. Like I said before, it's easiest to take them out one screw off of one side at a time, and it's the same way to put them back in. And after you get these screws back in, make sure you're careful. Sometimes it's easier to just, you can get the board off. Sometimes it's easier to just plug everything in that way and then just pushing the board back down where it needs to be. How does that bad boy go in? Okay, here. There we go. That's two little alignment pieces of plastic on the inside of the screen. Find those, give it a good gentle push, and it should stick back down. Then before you go to reassemble it, make sure that all the wires are within an allotted location on where they're supposed to be for the hinge assembly. And then you take the bezel. Might have to fold the screen back a little bit for that. Give it a good gentle push on each side. It'll snap right back down. Snap in. And then all you gotta do, you take the 4 screws, put them back up top, 2 screws on the corners, put the rubber feet, stick them back on, and then you take it and snap this back on like so. Just slides right down in. Okay, this side the cords must be in the way a little bit. So snap that back off as gently as possible. But like all things, sometimes it is a little difficult. Where they're supposed to be, I suppose. They always seem to move on you when you're in the middle of doing it. There we go. Then after you, like I said, you put those screws in, you put the feet back on, you flip it back over, you put all of the 7/8 screws back in, slap the battery in, and you are good to go. Or at least should be. If for some reason the screen still doesn't turn on after you've put one of the brand new screens in it, there is always a chance that the inverter board could be bad. Those are, depending on where you get them from, can be expensive or relatively cheap. And it also depends on if it's new or used. So usually that inverter board will be an easy fix. All you gotta do is just unplug those 2 wires and then swap the boards out and plug them back in, and you're good to go. Hopefully this video will help you with what it needs to. Thanks for watching.